The rain in Los Angeles fell like the city itself was mourning. Sofia stood beside her father's grave, dressed in black, hands trembling as the coffin was lowered into the ground. She was 23, alone in the world now, her heart hollow, her future uncertain. That was when she felt it, not a sound, not a touch, a presence. She slowly turned. A man stood a few steps away from the mourners, dressed in a black tailored suit that screamed power and wealth. He didn't cry. He didn't move. He simply watched the coffin descend with eyes darker than the storm clouds above. This was Dante Moretti, her late father's best friend's son, the man her father once called a devil with a loyal heart, the man who now ruled half of Los Angeles' underworld. Sofia had not seen him since she was a teenager. Back then, he was just a quiet, serious young man who would kneel to her height and ask if she was studying well. Now, he looked like a king carved from shadow. When the last prayer ended, people slowly began to leave. Dante did not. He waited. And when Sofia finally found the strength to step away from the grave, he approached her. "Miss Sofia," he said, his voice low, controlled, dangerous in its calm. She looked up at him, eyes red, lips shaking. "Dante, I didn't know you were back in the city. I came the moment I heard about your father." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken history. "He loved you," Sofia whispered. "He always said you were like the son he never had." Dante's jaw tightened. He was the only man I ever called family. The rain soaked their clothes, but neither of them moved. Finally, Dante spoke the words that would change her life. "Before he died, your father called me." Sofia's breath caught. He did? He made me promise something." Dante's eyes locked onto hers. He said, "If anything happens to me, you protect my daughter. With your life if you have to." Her voice trembled. "And what did you say?" "I said yes. Not softly, not emotionally, like an oath carved in stone. I will protect you, Sofia. No one in this city will touch you, not while I'm alive." She didn't know why, but his words made her feel safe and afraid at the same time. Because she could feel it. This man was not just a guardian. He was danger itself, and destiny had just tied her life to his. Sofia didn't notice the protection at first. It began quietly. Too quietly. A black SUV that seemed to appear at the end of her street every morning. The same man in a gray jacket sitting in a coffee shop across from her college. A stranger who always held the door open, always a step too alert, eyes scanning the room before she entered. She told herself it was coincidence. Los Angeles was a big city. People came and went, faces repeated, but the feeling never left her. That subtle tightening in her chest, that sense that someone was always watching, not in a threatening way, in a guarding way. One night, as she walked back to her apartment, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Hello?" A pause. Then a man's voice, low, calm, controlled. "Did you get home safely?" Her breath caught. "Who is this?" Another pause, longer this time. "You shouldn't walk alone after dark, Sofia." Her heart began to race. "How do you know my name?" The line went dead. She stood frozen on the sidewalk, the city noise fading around her. The wind brushed her hair, and suddenly the world felt too open, too exposed. That night, she locked her door twice. Across the city, in the top floor of a glass and steel tower, Dante Moretti watched the security feed on a wall of screens. Sofia entering her building. Sofia unlocking her door. Sofia disappearing inside. Only then did he sit back. 2 more men on her building, he ordered quietly. Day and night rotation. No gaps. One of his captains hesitated. "She doesn't know about us, boss." Dante's jaw tightened. "She doesn't need to. Her safety is not a discussion. But the enemies will die before they get within 100 feet of her." The room fell silent. Dante turned his chair toward the window, the lights of Los Angeles burning beneath him like a kingdom he ruled from the shadows. In his mind, he heard her father's voice again. "Protect her. She's all I have." And beneath that, another voice. His own, "She's not a child anymore." That realization disturbed him more than any rival ever had. The next day, Sofia felt it again. At the grocery store, a man stepped too close behind her. Before she could even turn, a stranger placed himself between them, his body a wall, his eyes cold and warning. The man backed away immediately. Sofia whispered, "Thank you." But the stranger had already disappeared. At a traffic light, a motorcycle pulled up beside her car, the rider glancing at her. Instantly, another bike slid between them, blocking the view, staying there until the light changed. Protection. Silent, precise, unseen. That evening, as she sat on her balcony, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Her fingers trembled as she answered. "Who are you?" she asked softly. A familiar voice replied, closer now. "You're not sleeping well." Her heart skipped. "You're the one who called last night." "Yes. Why are you watching me?" A pause, then the truth, wrapped in restraint. Because your father asked me to. Her breath caught in her throat. Dante? Yes, Sofia. She closed her eyes. Why don't you just tell me what's going on? She whispered. Because if you knew how dangerous this city really is, you'd never feel safe again. And you think I'm safe now? Another pause. With me watching you, he said quietly. You're the safest woman in Los Angeles. The line went silent. Sofia stared at the dark sky, her heart pounding. She didn't know it yet, but an invisible king had placed his entire empire between her and harm, and he was beginning to realize he wasn't only protecting her because of a promise. He was protecting her because losing her was becoming unthinkable. Sofia finally saw him again 3 days later, not in the shadows, not through a phone call, not as a distant presence watching her from somewhere unseen, but face to face. She was leaving her college building when a black luxury sedan pulled up to the curb with silent authority. The door opened before she could step away. Dante Moretti stepped out. The world seemed to slow. He was taller than she remembered, broader. His dark hair was perfectly combed back, his suit, hugging a body built for violence and command. A faint scar traced his jaw, a reminder that this was not a man who lived a gentle life. Sofia, he said, just her name. But it landed in her chest like a hand closing around her heart. You can't keep calling me from unknown numbers and watching me like a ghost, she said, trying to sound brave. If you're protecting me, then at least be honest. Dante studied her the way a predator studies the edge of a forest. Alert, controlled, measuring every step. You shouldn't be here alone, he replied. That's not an answer. A faint tightening appeared at the corner of his eyes. Not anger, restraint. I didn't want our first real conversation to be like this, he said quietly. But you left me no choice. No choice? She repeated. You're the one surrounding my life with strangers in silence. He stepped closer, not invading her space, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him, the gravity, the danger wrapped in control. Your father is gone, Dante said, and with him, the protection you didn't even know you had. Her voice softened. I don't need bodyguards. I need my father. The words cut deeper than any blade. For a moment, the ruthless mask cracked. I know, he said, but I can't bring him back. I can only keep you alive. She looked up at him, confusion mixing with something else, something warmer, more dangerous. Why do you care this much? She asked. You were his friend, yes, but this feels more than duty. Dante's jaw clenched, because he did care too much, and that was the problem. You are off limits to me, he said suddenly, sharply. Her brows knitted. Off limits? He nodded once. You are under my protection. That means you are not a woman to be looked at, desired, or touched by any man in my world, including me. The air between them thickened. She should have felt relieved. Instead, her heart raced. Why would you even say that? She whispered. Because he had already felt it. The pull, the forbidden awareness, the dangerous spark he was trying to bury under honor and loyalty. Dante took a step back, creating distance like a man stepping away from fire. Get in the car, he ordered gently. I'll have you taken home. I can walk. You won't. His tone wasn't loud. It was final. She hesitated, then obeyed. Inside the car, silence wrapped around them like a held breath. Sofia finally spoke. You're afraid of something. Dante stared out the window. Yes, of what? He turned to her, his eyes dark, intense, unreadable. Of wanting what I should never take. Her pulse jumped. The car stopped in front of her building. Before she could open the door, Dante spoke again, his voice low, controlled, dangerous in its honesty. From this moment on, your life is tied to mine. You will see things you don't understand. You will feel watched. You will feel protected. He held her gaze. And you will stay away from me, even when you start feeling like you don't want to. Her breath caught, because deep inside, something in her already knew. This wasn't just protection. This was the beginning of a forbidden attraction between an innocent woman and the ruthless king sworn to keep her safe. Los Angeles had a rhythm of danger. Sofia was beginning to feel it. It started with subtle threats. A car parked too long outside her apartment, tires squealing when she left. Anonymous messages slipped under her door. Phone calls with silence, except for a breathy warning, but nothing had prepared her for this. It was evening. She had just left her favorite cafe, the one her father used to take her to on lazy Sunday mornings. The streets glistened under the golden city lights, rain from earlier leaving everything wet and reflective. She walked slowly, carrying her bag tightly against her chest, unaware that eyes followed her every step. Then a black van pulled up, skidding slightly. 3 men jumped out, moving with precision and intent. They were not ordinary thieves, she realized too late. Her stomach dropped. Sofia's phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Get in a car, now. Before she could react, a voice she knew all too well cut through the chaos. Sofia! She turned. There he was, Dante Moretti, emerging from the shadows like a storm wrapped in silk and steel. The men hesitated, but Dante didn't. He moved like a predator, every step measured, dangerous, controlled, and then he exploded. A fist swung, and one man crumpled to the ground. A kick sent another staggering backward. The third tried to pull a weapon. Dante's hand caught his wrist mid-air, twisting it until a loud crack echoed off the alley walls. Sofia froze. Her eyes widened. She had known he was dangerous, feared him almost. But she never imagined this side of him, the monster lurking just beneath the gentleman's mask. "You shouldn't ever come near her again," Dante said, his voice low, steady, but every word carried the weight of life or death. The men, white-faced and terrified, scrambled back to the van. Dante didn't stop them. He let them flee. Then he turned to Sofia. She wanted to speak, to ask if he was hurt, to ask if they were safe. But words failed her. All she could do was stare at the man who had been her father's friend, her protector, and now a force of unbridled, terrifying power. His dark eyes softened slightly as he stepped closer. He reached out, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. "You're safe now," he said, but she could feel the tension still coiled in his muscles. "As long as I breathe, no one will touch you." Sofia swallowed hard. Her heart was racing, her hands trembling. You didn't have to," she started, but Dante interrupted her with a sharp shake of his head. "I promised your father. I promised him I would protect you, and I don't break promises." "Sofia, not ever." She nodded, unsure whether to feel relief or fear. That night, she realized something terrifying. The man who protected her was also capable of becoming a monster to anyone who threatened her, and beneath that terrifying truth, a small, guilty thrill ran through her. Because she wasn't just drawn to his gentleness. She was starting to feel the pull of the danger behind the gentleman's mask. She looked at him, a mix of awe and fear flooding her senses. You're not like anyone I've ever met," she whispered. Dante's gaze held hers, unflinching. "And you'll never meet anyone like me again." A chill ran down her spine as she realized this was only the beginning. Because in Dante Moretti's world, protection came with a price, and Sofia was already starting to wonder how much of that price she was willing to pay. The night had fallen over Los Angeles like a velvet curtain, soft and deceptive. The streets were quieter now, the city's chaos subdued, but Sofia felt a strange unease crawling up her spine. She tried to shake it off, telling herself she was imagining things. She was wrong. A van, dark as midnight, slid silently beside her as she walked back from a late dinner. Before she could react, the door burst open and two men lunged at her. "Get her!" one hissed. Her heart froze. Panic gripped her chest like icy fingers. She tried to scream, but the suddenness stole her voice. And then everything changed. A figure appeared, like a shadow made flesh, Dante Moretti. One second the men had her in their grasp. The next, Dante was there, moving faster than her eyes could follow. A punch sent one man flying into a lamppost. A knee to the ribs left the second staggering. Then Dante grabbed Sofia, spinning her behind him as a shield. "Stay behind me," he barked, his voice sharp, commanding, a dangerous melody that made her stomach twist. Her back pressed against his chest. Heat radiated off him, strong and alive, and she realized with a shiver that she could feel every beat of his heart, every controlled breath, every muscle ready to kill. The world narrowed to Dante and the fear that pulsed through her veins. The men, realizing they were outmatched, retreated, throwing curses over their shoulders. Dante's dark eyes followed them until they disappeared into the shadows. Only then did he exhale, a low, dangerous sound that seemed to vibrate in the air around her. Sofia couldn't move. She hadn't meant to, but her body pressed instinctively against his. She could feel the strength in his arms, the solid warmth of his chest, the steady thrum of his heartbeat. He noticed. Dante's eyes softened, not entirely, but enough to let her glimpse the man beneath the monster. His hand brushed a wet strand of hair from her face, lingering longer than necessary. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice now almost tender, betraying the first trace of vulnerability she had ever heard from him. I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "You shouldn't walk alone," he said, gripping her hand just enough to guide her. "Not tonight, not ever." Her pulse raced, not entirely from fear. Her fingers brushed his, and she could feel the heartbeat sink, his fast, controlled rhythm pounding against her slower, trembling one. It was intimate, terrifying, electric. Sofia realized she had never been this close to a man in her life, not this close, and yet, with every pulse, every heartbeat she could feel through the thin barrier of his suit, she felt safe and terrified all at once. "Dante," she breathed, not knowing what to say, or if saying anything at all would ruin this impossible moment. He leaned slightly closer, enough that her hair brushed against his cheek. "You will always be safe with me," he said, his voice a low promise that resonated in her chest, in her bones, in the part of her that had never known protection like this. For a heartbeat, or maybe two, they just stood there, frozen, the world around them collapsing into insignificance. Rain glistened on the pavement, and the city felt distant, irrelevant. And in that dangerous, stolen moment of closeness, Sofia realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She didn't just feel protected by Dante Moretti. She felt drawn to him, pulled into the storm he embodied. The man who could be her destruction or her salvation. And she didn't know which she feared more. Because tonight, the monster behind the gentleman's mask had saved her. And for the first time, she had let him in, just a little. The night had settled over Los Angeles, quiet now. But Sofia couldn't sleep. Not after what had happened. Not after Dante had saved her. His heat and presence still lingering in her mind like a phantom she couldn't shake. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands clasped tightly in her lap, staring at the darkened window. The city lights shimmered through the blinds, but the glow did little to calm her racing thoughts. A soft knock on her door made her jump. "Who is it?" she called softly. "It's me," Dante's low voice replied. "May I come in?" Her breath caught. He had a way of entering her world that made everything else fade. The air, the city, the fear, it all disappeared the moment he was near. She nodded, even though he couldn't see her, and the door opened. He stepped inside, silent and precise, his presence filling the room without a sound. "I needed to check on you," he said simply, his dark eyes scanning her, calm yet unreadable. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Dante studied her for a long moment, then sat in the chair across from her, hands folded loosely, in front of him. "You don't look fine," he said. "You look haunted." She looked down, unable to meet his gaze. The truth she had hidden for so long pressed at the tip of her tongue. She wanted to tell someone, needed to, but fear kept her quiet. Fear and desire. Finally, she whispered, "There's something you should know about me." Dante leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes fixed on hers. "What is it?" Her voice trembled. I've never been touched, not by a man." The words hung in the air, fragile and raw, as if admitting them could shatter her entirely. Dante's expression didn't change immediately. Then slowly, his jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists, resting on his knees, and she could see the storm behind his calm exterior. "Never?" he asked, his voice a low growl, controlled but tinged with a sharp edge. Sofia nodded. "Never. I've always been careful. I wanted to wait. I didn't think anyone like you would, you know." Her words faltered under his intense gaze. Dante rose, moving closer until he stood just a few feet from her. The air between them thickened, charged with a dangerous, undeniable tension. "Sofia," he said, his voice quiet but commanding, "you need to understand something." She swallowed hard, heart racing. "Your innocence," he said, taking a breath, "isn't just something precious. It's sacred, and I will never take it lightly." Her cheeks flushed. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The honesty in his eyes, the raw intensity of the man before her made her knees weak. "But," he continued, stepping closer, until the space between them was almost unbearable, "there's a difference between protection and desire, between honor and temptation. And right now, you're tempting me more than anyone has in my entire life." Sofia's breath hitched. She had felt the pull before, in moments like the night he had saved her, in the closeness they had shared without words. But hearing him say it, so deliberately, so openly, made her pulse spike. She tried to speak, but the words failed her. Dante crouched slightly, his eyes level with hers, dark and unrelenting. "You've never been touched, Sofia. And His hand hovered near hers, not touching, but close enough she could feel the heat radiating off him. "I want to respect that, but I also want you, all of you." Her chest tightened, fear and longing tangled into a dangerous knot. For the first time, Sofia realized just how complicated this was. He wasn't just her protector. He was her desire. He was the storm she had been warned about but wanted anyway. And now, for the first time, she had revealed herself fully. Not just her body, but her innocence, her trust, her vulnerability. Dante's gaze softened just enough for her to see the man behind the monster, the man who had promised to protect her, who now struggled with a desire he refused to name. "You're safe with me," he said quietly, a vow and a warning all at once. And in that dark, quiet room in Los Angeles, Sofia felt something terrifyingly exhilarating. Her innocence was no longer just hers to protect. It was the beginning of a dangerous, inevitable connection with Dante Moretti. The night air in Los Angeles carried a faint chill, but Sofia felt a heat burning inside her that had nothing to do with the weather. Dante had been unusually quiet all evening, his presence hovering just out of sight, like a storm waiting to break. They walked along the rooftop terrace of her apartment building, the city lights flickering, beneath them like distant stars. Sofia's pulse was erratic, a mix of adrenaline and something far more dangerous, desire. "Why are you here?" she asked softly, glancing at him. "Because I promised your father," Dante replied, his tone calm, but his eyes were anything but. They were dark, intense, measuring her in ways that made her skin tingle. "You're always here," she murmured, trying to keep her voice steady, watching, protecting. Dante's jaw tightened. "I'm here because it's my duty, nothing else." She turned to look at him, and in the soft glow of the terrace lights, she could see every line of his face, every shadow that made him both terrifying and irresistible. "I don't understand why you're so controlled," she whispered. "It's like there's a fire behind your eyes and you're always holding it back." Dante's gaze dropped to her lips for a fraction of a second, long enough for her to notice. Long enough to make her heartbeat spike. "You feel it too," he said quietly, his voice low, almost a growl. "I feel what?" she asked, her throat suddenly dry. "That pull between us," he admitted, taking a step closer. "The temptation, the danger. It's not just me thinking it." Sofia's breath caught, her chest tightened. She had tried to ignore it, tried to convince herself that he was only her protector, her father's promise made flesh. But the way his gaze lingered, the way his presence pressed against hers, made it impossible to lie. "You shouldn't feel this," Dante murmured, lowering his head slowly, dangerously close. "You're off limits. He stopped. His eyes flicked to hers, searching, holding her in place. "You're innocent," he finished instead, almost a whisper. "And I can't cross that line. Not tonight. Not ever." The words struck her like a shock. Part of her wanted him to kiss her anyway, to throw caution to the wind. Another part of her shivered with fear and anticipation. Dante's hand hovered near her cheek, trembling slightly, not from weakness but from restraint. The air between them was charged, electric, thick with desire and tension. He inhaled sharply, then stepped back, breaking the moment. His eyes burned with something, fierce, protective, and painfully restrained. "I can't," he said, voice rough, almost desperate. "Not yet. You're mine to protect, not to take, and I will not ruin what your father trusted me with." Sofia's lips parted, and she swallowed hard, wanting to argue, to beg, to throw herself into the forbidden temptation that simmered between them. Instead, she nodded slowly, her eyes locked on his. "You're dangerous," she whispered. "And you," he replied, voice low and heavy, "are everything I should never want." For a heartbeat, or maybe a lifetime, they stood there, the space between them alive with unspoken promises and restrained passion. Then Dante turned, his coat catching the wind as he walked away, leaving Sofia standing on the rooftop, trembling. Her heart pounded in sync with the memory of how close they had been, and how he had stopped himself. In that near sin, Sofia realized something terrifying and exhilarating. Their desire was real, undeniable, and forbidden. But it had only just begun. And Dante Moretti? He was already fighting the storm inside him, knowing every step closer to her could ignite a fire that neither of them would survive unscathed. Los Angeles had a pulse tonight, a dangerous electric rhythm that Sofia felt in every nerve. She had been cautious, aware of the city's shadows, yet somehow she had walked straight into their trap. It started with a text, anonymous, simple, "Meet me at the docks, midnight, alone, information about your father's past." Sofia's stomach twisted. The message screamed danger, but curiosity, and something deeper, something tied to Dante, pulled her forward. "I have to go," she whispered to herself, clutching her coat. What she didn't see was the black SUVs parked in the shadows, engines idling like predators. The men who had been following her for weeks now moved silently along the perimeter. She was walking right into their hands. Across the city, Dante Moretti's office was a fortress of screens. He didn't need them to tell him where she was. He already knew. "Boss," one of his captains said nervously, "she's heading to the docks, alone." Dante's hand clenched into a fist. The calm in his office vanished, replaced by a storm of anger and protective instinct. "She's bait," he growled. "And they won't stop until they get her. Move. Now." Back at the docks, Sofia walked between the towering shipping containers, her heels clicking against wet concrete. The moonlight barely illuminated the space, shadows stretching like long fingers. Her breath came in quick, uneven gasps. A figure emerged from the darkness. A man she didn't recognize, tall, menacing. "You came alone," he sneered. "Perfect." Sofia's heart thudded. Something inside her screamed to run, but her legs felt frozen. The words of her father, Dante's promise, it all felt distant, powerless against the immediacy of danger. Then a sound, a soft click behind the containers, a shadow moving faster than any human should move. "Sofia!" Dante appeared like lightning. One hand drew his gun, the other pulling her behind him in a seamless motion. His body pressed against hers, a wall of heat, strength, and controlled violence. The men lunged, but Dante was already a hurricane. A fist to one's jaw, a kick to the side, the metallic clang of weapons meeting metal. The men didn't stand a chance. He moved with lethal precision, every strike measured, every breath controlled, every movement designed to protect her. Sofia clung to him instinctively, his chest against her back, his arm around her waist, his heartbeat in her ear. She could feel it, fast, steady, a rhythm that synchronized with her own terror-stricken pulse. "You're safe," he muttered in her ear, low and dangerous. "I've got you, always." Her mind reeled. This was the man she had called protector, the man she had begun to desire, and yet, seeing him like this, a monster for her enemies, terrified her. When the last attacker hit the ground, groaning, Dante finally released her slightly, stepping back just enough to let her breathe. His dark eyes scanned her face, searching, protective, relentless. "Do you understand now?" he asked, voice low, restrained fury simmering beneath the surface. "This city will never let you live freely. Not without me. And anyone who tries, dies." Sofia nodded, unable to speak, her lips trembling. Her pulse raced, not only from fear, but from the raw intensity of being this close to Dante, the man whose power and darkness had become her lifeline. She realized with a shiver she couldn't hide. She had never felt safer, and never more drawn to danger, than when Dante was controlling it all. Tonight, the line between protector and lover blurred. Tonight, she had glimpsed the full scope of Dante Moretti, the man who could be both her salvation and her obsession. And as they disappeared into the shadows together, Sofia understood one terrifying truth. In his world, every heartbeat, every breath, every choice could be life or death. And Dante would let no one touch her, even if it meant destroying anyone who dared. The city smelled of smoke and blood. Sirens wailed in the distance, muffled by the pounding of Dante Moretti's heartbeat. He had arrived too late. The docks were chaos. Flames licked the sides of shipping containers. The men who had been waiting for her lay scattered, unconscious or fleeing. But Sofia was gone. "No, no, no, no." Dante's voice ripped through the night, low, guttural, almost a growl. His hands clawed at his hair, eyes scanning frantically. Every shadow, every dark corner, every shadowed alley became a threat, or worse, a lie hiding her corpse. He dropped to his knees, hands digging into the wet concrete. Rain slicked his suit, but he barely felt it. "Sofia!" he screamed, voice breaking for the first time, raw and uncontrolled. "Where are you? Tell me you're alive!" The wind carried only silence back to him. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed in a blur. Every step, every flicker of movement, every faint sound made his chest tighten with hope and dread. And then he saw it. A dark figure lying against the far side of a container, unmoving. He ran, heart hammering, adrenaline surging. When he reached her, his worst fear crystallized. Blood streaked her dress. Her face was pale, lips barely moving. His mind froze. "Sofia!" His hands shook as he cupped her face, brushing wet hair from her forehead. Her pulse, weak, but there. You can't," he whispered, voice breaking, tears forming. "I can't lose you. Not you. Not her. Not now." She stirred slightly, a faint groan escaping her lips. Relief hit him like a tidal wave, but so did rage. Rage at anyone who dared touch her. At the world, at himself for letting her slip into danger. "God damn it!" he roared, grabbing two men who had dared linger nearby and throwing them across the dock with a strength that was almost inhuman. Every move was a blur, precise and lethal. He wasn't stopping until he had ensured nothing would ever threaten her again. Finally, he sank to the ground beside her, cradling her in his arms. Rain soaked them both, Her pulse gradually steadied under his touch, but his own heartbeat thudded violently, syncing with hers in a chaotic rhythm. "Sofia, you can't ever leave me like that again," he whispered, voice low and rough. His lips brushed the top of her hair, hesitating, trembling. "Do you understand? You belong here, with me, always, alive, never gone." She blinked up at him, fear and confusion and a budding, dangerous awareness flickering in her eyes. "Dante, He silenced her with a sharp shake of his head, eyes locking onto hers, dark, intense, commanding. "No words, not now, not ever. You don't get to explain. You don't get to be anywhere but here with me." The air around them crackled with electricity. Fear, relief, desire, all tangled together. He held her closer, almost possessively, as if letting go even for a second could mean losing her forever. She could feel the rapid drum of his heartbeat against her cheek, syncing with hers in a way that made her blood run hot. And in that moment, Sofia realized something terrifying. Dante's love was a storm, uncontrollable, all-consuming, and utterly inevitable. "I should have been there," he muttered, voice rough, teeth clenched. "I should have never let you be alone. You will never face danger without me again. Do you hear me?" "Yes," she whispered, barely audible, trembling in his arms. "No," he corrected, lifting her chin with a strong hand, eyes piercing hers. "You don't just hear me, you feel me, because if I can't feel every moment you're alive, I will lose my mind." Sofia's chest tightened, heart racing, pulse aligning with his. For the first time, the line between protection and obsession blurred completely. For the first time, Dante Moretti allowed himself to love without restraint, without duty, without control. And the storm inside him, fury, fear, desire, and devotion, exploded, raw and unstoppable, as he held Sofia in the aftermath of the trap that had almost stolen her from him. Tonight, he realized, losing her was impossible, loving her recklessly, inevitable. The city was quiet now, too quiet. Los Angeles lay beneath them like a sleeping giant, unaware of the storm that had passed and the storm that was about to ignite. Sofia sat on the rooftop of her apartment, still trembling from the night's chaos. Her dress was damp from rain and adrenaline, hair clinging to her skin. She felt hollow, exhausted, yet alive in a way she had never felt before. Then he was there. Dante Moretti, silent, precise, inevitable. She didn't need to look at him to feel him. His presence filled the space, pressing against her senses. The sharp scent of his cologne, the weight of his gaze, the subtle hum of danger that clung to him like a second skin. It all made her pulse stutter. "Dante," she whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, slow, deliberate. Every movement was a promise, a threat, a confession. Her chest tightened, breath caught. "I shouldn't be here," he said finally, voice low, controlled, but with a tremor she had never heard before. "You're always here," she replied, voice trembling, "watching, protecting, and I can't stop thinking about you." His eyes darkened, the color of storm clouds. Sofia, she couldn't finish her sentence. Words had become useless in the gravity of him. The man who had saved her, haunted her, terrified her, now stood inches away, and she felt it, that impossible, irresistible pull. Dante's hand lifted slowly, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered near, her cheek, warm, strong, alive. Her pulse leapt. She could feel his heartbeat, slow and steady, syncing with the chaotic rhythm of her own. "I shouldn't," he whispered, leaning closer. "I can't." Her lips parted instinctively. "Dante." The distance between them collapsed in a heartbeat. His lips brushed hers, softly, almost, questioning, testing, but the heat behind it made her knees weak. Her hands instinctively went to his chest, feeling the strength and heat, feeling him alive beneath her fingertips. It was electric, dangerous, forbidden. And then he deepened the kiss. Everything else disappeared. The city, the night, the fear, the past, the promise. All that existed was him and her, pressed together in a collision of need and longing that neither could control. Her breath mingled with his, her hands clutching at his suit, feeling the tension, the restraint, the desire that had been building for weeks. "I can't," Dante murmured against her lips, voice rough, full of restraint and hunger. "Yes," she whispered back. "Yes, Dante, I want this. I want you." The words were a surrender, a confession, a promise. And Dante's hands tightened around her waist, pulling her impossibly close, his lips claiming hers with a force that was both tender and possessive. Her body pressed to his, every nerve screaming with need and fear and exhilaration. She felt his heart beat against hers, faster now, sinking in a rhythm that was intoxicating, dangerous, and irresistible. When they finally pulled back, just enough to breathe, Dante's forehead rested against hers. His dark eyes burned into hers. "You're mine," he said softly, but with an edge that left no room for doubt. "And I'm yours," Sofia whispered, her voice shaking but steady in its surrender. For the first time, both of them let go, of restraint, of fear, of duty. They had crossed the line between protection and desire. And in that kiss, that surrender, that heartbeat sync moment, Sofia realized something terrifying and exhilarating. With Dante Moretti, love was not safe, and it was the only thing she wanted. The city lights flickered below them, the night held its breath. And above it all, two hearts beat as one, wild, unstoppable, and utterly consumed by passion. The apartment was silent now. The storm of their kiss had passed, but the tension between them lingered like a storm cloud refusing to break. Sofia sat across from Dante, her hands folded in her lap, eyes wide and searching. Something had shifted in the air, a gravity she couldn't ignore. Dante leaned against the edge of the table, dark eyes fixed on hers. His jaw was tight, hands clenched at his sides. He had something to say, something he had avoided for too long. "Sofia," he began, voice low and measured, "there's something you need to know about your father." Her stomach twisted. What is it?" He took a step closer, his presence filling the room. "The night he died, it wasn't an accident." Her breath caught. She shook her head. I don't understand." "It was a setup," Dante said, the words heavy and deliberate. "Your father was targeted because of a deal gone wrong. He tried to protect you, even in his last moments. He died because of someone I couldn't stop." Sofia's eyes filled with tears. The man she had trusted most, her father, her protector, the one who had always kept her safe, had been betrayed, and Dante had been powerless to save him. "I failed him," Dante admitted, voice breaking slightly, a rare crack in his otherwise impenetrable armor. "I promised I would protect you. And yet He trailed off, shaking his head, dark hair falling into his eyes. She stood, trembling, taking a step toward him. "Dante, you didn't fail him. You've been protecting me all this time. He silenced her with a look, intense and piercing. "I couldn't stop what happened that night, and I can't forgive myself for it." Her chest tightened. You loved him too, didn't you? Your father? He trusted you. He made you a part of my life because he knew you cared." Dante's dark eyes softened briefly, but the storm behind them remained. "I cared. I still do. That's why I promised him. Your life comes before everything else, even me." Sofia shook her head, tears spilling freely now. "But all this, the danger, the threats, the traps, they're real. And they're all because of what happened to him?" "Yes," Dante said, voice low, rough with anger and grief. "And because of that, I can't let anyone harm you. I will fight, kill, destroy, whatever it takes. But you don't understand the weight of what he left behind, or the enemies that still lurk." She looked at him, searching his face, seeing both the monster and the man behind it. "Then why are you here? Why stay close? Why care for me so much?" He stepped closer, dark eyes burning into hers. "Because you're the last part of him, the piece of my world that's sacred, and because I can't help myself." Sofia's lips parted. You feel for me?" "Yes," he said, quiet but unwavering. "I've fought it, tried to bury it behind duty and honor, but it's there, and it's real, and if anyone, ever tried to take you from me, I would tear the world apart for you." Her hands trembled as she reached for his, and he didn't pull away. Instead, he held them tightly, grounding her in the truth of him, the promise of protection, and the undeniable pull between them. "You're my future, Sofia," Dante whispered, voice low, almost pained. "Not just my responsibility, my heart." Sofia's breath hitched. The grief of her father's loss, the terror of the threats, the forbidden desire between them, it all collided inside her, and in that collision she realized Dante Moretti wasn't just her protector. He was the only man who could ever hold her, the only one whose love could survive the darkness of her past and the shadows of the city. For the first time, she didn't fear the storm. She wanted to stand in it, with him. And he would never let her go. The morning light in Los Angeles was pale, almost fragile, but it did nothing to soften the weight in Sofia's chest. Her apartment was quiet, eerily so. Every corner, every shadow seemed to hum with the memory of Dante, the warmth of his touch, the electricity of his gaze, the unspoken tension that had left her breathless just hours ago. She packed her bag slowly, methodically, trying to convince herself that leaving wasn't about fear, but survival. That every step away from him was a step towards safety, rationality, and control. But her heart betrayed her. Every beat screamed his name. The knock on her door made her pause. Her pulse stuttered, but she didn't answer. She knew who it was without looking. She knew the weight of his presence even before he stepped inside. "Dante," she said finally, voice trembling. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, dark eyes scanning her face. For a moment, nothing passed between them except the tension, thick enough to taste. "You're leaving," he stated, not a question. I have to," she whispered, voice breaking. "It's too dangerous. For you. For me. Being close to you. It puts both of us at risk." Dante's jaw clenched. His dark eyes softened, but only slightly. There was an unmistakable ache in them, one she had never seen before. "You think I can't handle it?" he asked, voice low, dangerous, almost pleading. "You think I'll let anyone touch you?" "I know you will," she said, tears slipping down her cheeks. "But I can't keep putting you in danger because of me. You're already carrying so much. Enemies, threats, obligations. And I can't risk being the reason you're hurt. Or worse." He stepped closer but didn't reach for her. Not yet. His restraint was monumental, painful, and heartbreaking. "Do you realize what you're doing?" he asked softly. "Walking away from me, from this, from us?" "Yes," she whispered. "I do, but it's the only way I survive." The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the city below. Dante's eyes darkened again, the storm returning. But beneath the fury and desire, there was something else. Love, twisted and protective, suffocating and desperate. "You're my world, Sofia," he said quietly, almost to himself. "And yet, I'll let you go. If that's what it takes for you to be safe." Sofia's chest tightened. She had expected anger, pleading, violence. Not this unbearable calm, edged with pain and longing. "Promise me something," Dante said, voice rough, breaking the fragile stillness. "If anything happens, if they come for you, you call me immediately. No hesitation, no pride. You trust me." "I promise," she whispered, barely audible. He exhaled sharply, like a man releasing a lifetime of tension, and stepped back. His dark eyes lingered on her, memorizing her face, her fragile beauty, the essence of her that had bewitched him completely. "Go," he said finally, voice low and final. "Run, hide, live, and know you are mine no matter the distance, no matter the time." Sofia nodded, tears flowing freely now. She turned and left, each step heavier than the last, until the door closed behind her. Dante stood alone, silent, his chest rising and falling rapidly. The apartment felt empty, the air thick with what could not be spoken aloud. He had let her go. Not because he wanted to, but because her safety came before his desire. And yet, as he stared out at the city skyline, a bitter truth gnawed at him. Letting her go didn't lessen the storm inside him. It only made it grow more dangerous. For Dante Moretti, separation was a battlefield, and losing Sofia, even temporarily, was a wound that no power, no money, no empire could ever heal. Tonight she survived. Tonight he endured, but both knew the distance between them was only temporary. The pull, the fire, the inevitable reunion was coming. Los Angeles had turned into a battlefield, a city of shadows and fire. Dante Moretti moved like a phantom through the streets, a storm contained in a tailored suit, his mind sharp, every nerve, screaming for retribution. The separation had been unbearable, knowing Sofia was out there, alone, vulnerable, ignited, a fury in him that no enemy could withstand. Every step, every order, every strike he made was fueled by one thought: bring her back, alive, and punish anyone who dared touch her. He was war incarnate. Across the city, rival families had grown bold. Dante's enemies thought they could exploit the absence of his personal oversight, but they had underestimated the wrath of a man whose heart and empire had been tethered to one woman. The first attack came at a downtown warehouse. Explosions lit the night, glass shattered, and screams echoed through the corridors. Dante's men moved with lethal precision, but he was everywhere at once. Shadow, storm, and command. His voice cut through the chaos. Find her, keep her safe at all costs, and make them regret breathing. Bullets ricocheted, men fell, and in the midst of it all, Dante advanced. He didn't hesitate. A fist to a jaw, a kick to the chest, a gun raised with cold intent. Every move was poetry, terrifying in its beauty. He was the predator, and this city was his prey. Meanwhile, Sofia, clever, brave, and terrified, had been cornered in a dark alley. She tried to escape, heart hammering, but the shadows closed in. Then a figure appeared, impossibly fast, impossibly precise. Dante. He caught her in a sweep of arms that made her gasp, pressing her against him with a force that was both protective and possessive. "I told you to stay away from danger." His voice was a growl, low and primal. "I didn't know where else to go," she cried, her voice shaking with fear and frustration. "Then you stay with me," he roared, spinning, striking a man who dared approach them, and then tossing him aside like a rag doll. He became both shield and weapon, moving with terrifying grace. The battle raged around them. Dante's fury was a storm. Sofia's fear mingled with awe. He was terrifying and irresistible. The monster and the gentleman existed simultaneously in him, and tonight she saw both. He finally dropped her behind a steel container, scanning the alley, breathing hard. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, eyes dark, full of fire. "No," she whispered, trembling. I'm fine. "You will never face this alone again," he said, voice low, deadly, but also impossibly tender. Enina stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, fingers intertwining without intention but with meaning. Possession, protection, desire. Sofia's breath hitched as he pulled her close. "You're mine," he whispered, dark and unstoppable. "And you'll always be mine," she breathed back, the weight of their connection anchoring her. Amidst the chaos, the war wasn't just outside. The bullets, the blood, the betrayal. It was inside him too. The war, between control and desire, between duty and the heart, between the monster and the man who loved her fiercely and recklessly. By the end of the night, the city was scorched, enemies scattered or defeated, and Dante stood, tall, a living storm, with Sofia finally in his arms. Her fear was replaced by trust, her terror replaced by awe. And as he pressed his forehead against hers, whispering promises she could feel in her bones, both knew the truth. The war was far from over, but together they were unstoppable. Tonight, blood had been shed. Tonight, love had been claimed. And tonight, Dante Moretti had shown Sofia the full power and danger of the man she loved. The aftermath of the war left Los Angeles quiet, but Sofia's mind was anything but. The cities. Chaos had faded into memory, but her heart still raced, her body still trembled, and her thoughts spun endlessly around one inescapable truth. Dante Moretti was everything, and choosing him meant stepping into a life of danger, obsession, and passion she had never imagined. She sat on the balcony of her apartment, the night breeze carrying the faint hum of the city below. Her hands trembled as she held the glass of water, but it wasn't fear. At least, not only fear. It was anticipation, longing, and a dangerous curiosity that she couldn't ignore. Dante stepped onto the balcony without knocking, the city lights glinting off his tailored suit, his dark hair damp from the rain earlier. He didn't speak at first. He never needed to. The tension between them, the pull, the desire, it filled the space without a single word. "You're thinking about leaving me," he said finally, voice low, controlled, but edged with something dangerous. Sofia swallowed. I have to choose," she whispered. I can't let this just happen. I have to decide if I can live with the world you live in. The danger, the secrets, the darkness." Dante's dark eyes softened, though the fire behind them never faded. "And if you choose me?" he asked, almost daring her to say it. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. "I'm terrified of everything, of losing you, of losing myself, of being swallowed up in your world." "Then you'll have to trust me," he said, stepping closer, heat radiating from his body. His hand brushed hers, tentative but purposeful. "Trust that I will protect you, that I will fight every battle, face every danger, bleed and kill if I have to keep you safe." Her breath hitched. "Even if I'm scared." "Especially if you're scared," he murmured, "because courage doesn't mean not being afraid. It means standing with me, even when the fear is real." Sofia looked into his eyes, dark and commanding, and for the first time, she felt the weight of the choice before her. She could walk away, live a life of safety, distance, and mundane security. But she would never escape him. She would never escape what she felt, the pull, the desire, the dangerous, consuming love that had taken root in her heart. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'd choose you." Dante's lips curled into the faintest of smiles, almost predatory, almost tender, almost terrifying all at once. "You've just made the most dangerous choice of your life," he said softly. "I know," she replied, standing taller now, heart racing, fear mingling with exhilaration. "But I don't want safe. I want you, all of you. The storm, the fire, the darkness, and even the man. Behind it." Dante closed the space between them in a heartbeat. His hands framed her face, fingers tracing the line of her jaw, thumb brushing her lips. "Then it's done," he whispered, voice low and commanding. "You're mine, Sofia, and I am yours. Every heartbeat, every breath, every battle." She leaned into him, letting the fear, the longing, the surrender wash over her. In that moment, she understood fully that choosing him wasn't just a decision. It was a surrender to a love that was as dangerous as it was inevitable. And as the city lights flickered below, the skyline stretching endlessly into the night, Sofia felt it. Her choice had been made, and nothing, no enemy, no danger, no secret, would ever pull her away from Dante Moretti again. Because she had chosen love, and she had chosen the storm, and she had chosen him. The night was thick, velvet black, and heavy with the scent of rain, and the city, Los Angeles, glittered below like 1,000 tiny flames. But up here, on the secluded rooftop, there was only Sofia and Dante, a world apart from everything else. Sofia's heart raced as she stood there, still trembling from the choice she had just made. Her chest heaved, adrenaline and desire mixing with relief, fear and longing. This was it. She had chosen him, surrendered to the storm he embodied, and now it was his turn to claim her. Dante stepped closer, slow, deliberate, every movement radiating control and danger. His dark eyes roamed her face, memorizing her expression, her vulnerability, her courage. He saw the trembling in her hands, the heat in her cheeks, the trust in her gaze, and it stirred something primal inside him. "You chose me," he said, voice low, rough, edged with hunger. "You could have walked away. You could have fled, but you stayed." I stayed," Sofia whispered, barely able to breathe, "because I trust you, because I want you." Dante's jaw tightened. He closed the space between them, his hand cradling her face, thumb brushing her lips in a slow, deliberate gesture that made her shiver. His other hand moved to her waist, pulling her impossibly close until their bodies were aligned perfectly. Heartbeat too. Heartbeat, breath to breath. "You're mine," he growled. The words more than a claim. They were a vow, a promise, a warning. "And I'm yours," Sofia breathed, pressing closer to him, letting the warmth of his body ground her, ignite her, overwhelm her. Dante's lips brushed hers, soft at first, testing, savoring, and then he claimed her fully. The kiss deepened, possessive, urgent, all-consuming. She melted into him, hands clutching his coat, fingers threading into his hair, as if anchoring herself to him, to this moment, to the man who had become her protector, her danger, her obsession. He broke the kiss briefly, forehead resting against hers, eyes dark, burning, almost feral. "I vow to you," he whispered, each word deliberate, "that I will protect you with everything I have. I will fight every enemy, kill every threat, and endure every danger. You will never want for safety, for devotion, for love, not while I breathe." Sofia's lips trembled, tears of exhilaration and longing sliding down her cheeks. I believe you," she whispered. "And I'll be with you, always, in everything. Danger, darkness. I'll face it all with you." Dante's hands tightened on her, possessive but reverent. "Then hear me clearly," he said, voice dropping to a growl, every syllable heavy with intent. "You are mine. No one touches you, threatens you, or comes between us. Not the world, not enemies, not time itself. You are my heart, my blood, my obsession, and I claim you now, completely." Sofia's breath hitched. Her body pressed to his, heart racing in sync with his own. Every pulse, every rhythm, every stolen breath bound them together. "Then I surrender," she whispered. "All of me, every part, I'm yours." Dante's lips captured hers again, this time slow, deliberate, full of the fire and restraint he had carried for weeks. It was a kiss of promise, of possession, of undeniable love and desire. Every movement, every touch, every whisper cemented their bond. As they parted slightly, foreheads still pressed together, Dante's dark eyes bore into hers. "From this night forward," he vowed, "nothing will take you from me. Not the past, not the city, not even death. You are mine. Always. And I am yours." Sofia nodded, trembling, exhilarated, terrified, and completely surrendered. "Always," she whispered back, and in that moment, the world fell away. The danger, the enemies, the chaos. They existed, yes. But here, on this rooftop, with the city stretched below them, love had been claimed. Vows had been made, and hearts had been surrendered fully, dangerously, irrevocably. Dante Moretti had claimed his Sofia, and she had surrendered to him, body, heart, and soul. The storm had ended, and yet, somehow it had just begun. The city lights of Los Angeles fade behind Dante and Sofia, but their story, dangerous, passionate, and utterly unforgettable, is only just beginning. Every heartbeat, every secret, every stolen moment has led them to this point, and there's so much more waiting to unfold. If you've felt the tension, the desire, the forbidden love that consumes them, don't let the story end here. Subscribe now to follow Sofia and Dante through every twist, every danger, and every stolen kiss. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of this dark, emotional, and irresistible mafia romance. Join us and step deeper into a world of love, passion, and danger, where every heartbeat could change everything. Subscribe today and let the story consume you.